Finish one step closer to a 50-win season. Jaylen Green.
In a season marked by revival, the Houston Rockets are pushing closer to the elusive 50-win mark. And at the heart of that charge is Jaylen Green, a name that's become synonymous with speed, style, and soaring expectations. Once a wiry teenager with nothing but raw talent and a dream, Green has evolved into the face of a franchise long hungry for a return to glory. But behind the highlight reels and rising stats lies a story far more electrifying than anything seen courtside. Green's journey isn't just about basketball. At just 23, he's commanding multimillion-dollar contracts, dominating social media with jaw-dropping plays, and making headlines for reasons that have nothing to do with the game. Chief among them, his controversial relationship with a woman 17 years his senior, a reality TV star turned fashion mogul who has already lived a lifetime before Green entered adulthood. When they welcomed a child together in 2024, it wasn't just tabloid fodder. It became a national conversation. So how did a kid from Fresno, raised far from flashing cameras and luxury endorsements, climb to the peak of professional basketball while navigating scandals, fatherhood, and a love story that defied every norm? Was it talent, timing, or something deeper and far more surprising? Tonight, we trace the meteoric rise, the whispered rumors, and the very public challenges of Jaylen Green, a star athlete, a controversial figure, and for many, a modern American enigma. This is a story behind the fame, and what it really takes to go from concrete courts to becoming one of the most polarizing young stars in the NBA. Before the million-dollar contracts, the private jets, and the swirling controversies, Jaylen Green was just another kid in Fresno, California, a place better known for its agricultural grit than NBA prospects. Born on February 9, 2002, Green was raised by his mother-breed parent, a hardworking Filipino-American nurse, and his stepfather, Marcus Green, a former semi-pro basketball player who helped ignite Jaylen's love for the game. But there wasn't a life of ease or glamour. It was paycheck-to-paycheck survival steeped in sacrifice. Fresno didn't roll out red carpets for young dreamers. Its cracked asphalt courts and rusted rims were where Green learned the game, often barefoot or in worn-down sneakers. "Everything I've got, I built from nothing," he later told GQ. And it wasn't just a catchy quote, it was his truth. There were no private trainers or five-star camps, just sweat-drenched afternoons under California's blistering sun, pounding the pavement with relentless hunger. But raw talent doesn't always breed support. Green recalled Fresno as a crab bucket, a place where others tried to pull you down the moment you started climbing up. As his reputation grew and scouts took notice, so did the whispers. Classmates labeled him cocky. Locals muttered that he was too Hollywood. But what they missed was the fear behind the confidence. The urgency of a young man trying to outrun poverty and obscurity. He didn't crumble. He climbed. Leaving behind the comfort of home, Green transferred to prolific prep in Napa Valley, a national powerhouse for elite basketball prospects. At just 16, he said goodbye to family, friends, and familiarity for the chance to chase greatness. That decision, terrifying for most teenagers, became the first real sign that Jaylen Green was willing to risk everything to rise. At an age when most teenagers are just figuring out high school locker combinations, Jaylen Green was packing his bags for a shot at the national stage. The decision to leave Fresno for prolific prep, a premier basketball academy in Napa Valley, wasn't just bold. It was seismic. At 16 years old, Green uprooted everything familiar to chase a dream that chewed up and spit out most prospects before they ever made it to the pros. At prolific prep, he wasn't the big fish anymore. Surrounded by other elite talent, every day was a test. Could he hold his own? Could he outshine the kids with better training, bigger resumes, and deeper pockets? Green not only survived, he thrived. With his lightning-quick first step, dazzling footwork, and high-flying athleticism, he quickly became the focal point of the team. But the pressure mounted fast. Recruiters from blue blood programs like Arizona and USC were lining up. By the age of 15, Green was already a national name, a walking highlight reel with a future in the NBA all but guaranteed. But behind the fanfare, he was still a teenager. In one Bleacher Report interview, Green admitted his friends treated him like an NBA star, but he was just a kid who still loved Skittles and High School Musical. That blend of childlike joy and grown man responsibility made him both magnetic and vulnerable. Off the court, loneliness crept in. The distance from home wasn't just physical, it was emotional. He was living a grown-up life in a teenage body, balancing interviews, endorsement chatter, and expectations that would crush most adults. Yet, Green never lost focus. Every gym session, every road game, every whisper of doubt became fuel. And it was in this crucible of pressure that a future star began to emerge, not just physically gifted, but mentally unshakable. When Jaylen Green announced in 2020 that he would skip college to join the NBA G League Ignite team, it sent shockwaves through the basketball world. At just 18 years old, he turned down scholarships, March Madness, and the traditional NCAA spotlight for a $500,000 contract and a high-stakes experiment in professional development. It was a move that left some fans in awe and others questioning his judgment. Green didn't flinch. He knew what was at stake. The G League was no safe haven. It was packed with journeyman former college stars and overseas veterans, grown men fighting for one last shot at the league. And into that unforgiving mix stepped a teenager from Fresno with $1 million smile and a target on his back. But Green came prepared. In the 2020-21 season, he averaged 17.9 points per game, flashing the elite scoring instincts and athletic explosiveness that had scouts salivating. He didn't dominate every night, and there were bumps along the way, but what stood out was his willingness to fight through adversity. The rougher the game got, the tougher he played. The brighter the lights, the more he pushed to rise. Critics claimed he was skipping steps. Green insisted he was just rewriting the blueprint. "I wanted to grow up fast," he said in multiple interviews, and the G League offered exactly that. There were no college campuses, no dorm parties. Just buses, practices, and a daily grind that sharpened him like steel. In hindsight, the gamble paid off. He didn't just prove he could hang, he proved he could lead. And when NBA draft day came, the Houston Rockets made it official. Jaylen Green was no longer a prospect. He was the future. Draft night 2021 marked a new era in Houston. With a second overall pick, the Rockets selected Jaylen Green, a high-flying, high-pressure phenom expected to help rebuild a once-proud franchise. But the NBA isn't kind to rookies, no matter how bright their star shines. And for Green, that first season was a cold plunge into the unforgiving waters of professional basketball. The expectations were sky high. Fans wanted instant results. Analysts demanded efficiency. But Green started slow. Through the first half of the season, he averaged just 14 points per game, with inconsistent shooting and shaky defense. The whispers came fast. Is he a bust? Was he overhyped? Too much flash, not enough substance? For a 19-year-old, the pressure could have crushed him. Instead, Jaylen adapted. March 2022 became his proving ground. In a stunning burst of form, Green dropped 30 points in 5 consecutive games, a feat not seen since Allen Iverson in 1997. The crescendo came against the Atlanta Hawks when he lit up the scoreboard with a career-high 41 points. Suddenly, the critics fell silent. The kid they doubted had arrived, and he didn't just show up, he made a statement. That rookie season wasn't just about scoring. It was about learning how to pace himself, how to endure back-to-backs, how to be a leader on a team that was rebuilding from the ground up. There were still tough nights, turnovers, missed opportunities, but every mistake became a lesson. Every failure, a foundation. By the end of the 2021-22 campaign, it was clear Jaylen Green wasn't just another flashy guard. He was Houston's future, and the city's best shot at returning to relevance. By the time the 2022-23 NBA season tipped off, Jaylen Green was no longer just a promising rookie. He was the centerpiece of a franchise in transition. The numbers told part of the story. Averaging 22.1 points per game, Green showcased not only his scoring prowess, but a growing maturity on the court. On some nights, he exploded, dropping 42 points against the Minnesota Timberwolves in a dazzling offensive display. On others, he struggled, benched after rough shooting nights that reminded everyone he was still just 20 years old. But one thing became increasingly clear. Green wasn't shrinking from the spotlight. He was learning to own it. The league took notice. So did the Rockets. On October 21st, 2024, the team locked in its commitment with a 3-year, $106 million contract extension. For Green, it was more than money. It was validation. The contract made him one of the youngest players in league history to secure such a massive deal, a financial and symbolic endorsement that the franchise was betting everything on his shoulders. Off the court, the paycheck was transformative. In the 2024 to 25 season alone, Green pocketed $12.48 million, a figure that seems surreal for a kid who once played on crumbling Fresno courts with no net and fading hope. But Green didn't just stash the cash, he invested it. In Houston, insiders speculate he purchased a multi-million-dollar mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhoods, River Oaks or the Woodlands. Think private gates, manicured lawns, an NBA-grade indoor court, and a crystal chandelier overhead. In Los Angeles, a penthouse in Beverly Hills or West Hollywood wasn't out of reach either. Jalen was no longer just living the dream. He was curating a lifestyle to match it. For Jaylen Green, success isn't just measured in points or contracts. It's heard in the roar of a Lamborghini engine and seen in the gleam of a luxury SUV pulling into a private driveway. With his skyrocketing NBA income and mounting endorsement deals, Green has embraced a lifestyle where style meets horsepower. And image is everything. In his garage, sources close to the young star say you'll find automotive royalty. First, the Lamborghini Urus, a $230,000 beast boasting 641 horsepower and a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of just 3.6 seconds. It's a vehicle that mirrors Green's game, explosive, unapologetic, and built to turn heads. Alongside it, the classic symbol of status, the Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon. Priced north of $150,000, it's roomy, rugged, and refined, perfect for an NBA star navigating life on the move. And for pure thrill, there's the Porsche 911 Turbo S, a car that screams speed and precision, much like Green on a fast break. But it's not just the cars. Jalen's business acumen off the court has matched his boldness on it. With over 2.4 million followers on Instagram, Green's social reach is its own currency. Every post, whether it's a sneaker drop, luxury brand collab, or candid glimpse of his life, earns tens of thousands. And brands are paying attention. Adidas, Coinbase, Google, and Liquid Death have all lined up behind him, with some deals rumored to be worth up to $1 million per year. He's not just selling a product, he's selling a persona. One part athlete, one part influencer, all wrapped in youthful ambition. And unlike some players who settle into the league's rhythm quietly, Green has crafted an identity as both a baller and a brand. From courtside to curbside, Jaylen Green isn't just chasing greatness. He's racing toward it full throttle. If Jaylen Green's career was already under the microscope, his personal life would soon eclipse even his most jaw-dropping plays. By mid-2023, rumors swirled that the young rocket star was romantically involved with Drea Michele, actress, fashion designer, and reality TV personality best known from Basketball Wives LA. But it wasn't the celebrity status that turned heads. It was the age gap. At 17 years as senior, Drea Michele represented a shocking departure from the expected narrative. Green was just 21, still learning the rhythms of adulthood. Michele was 38, a woman with a thriving business, a media footprint, and a history that had already played out in the public eye. For many fans, the relationship was hard to process. Was it love, opportunism, or a train wreck waiting to happen? When Michele gave birth to their daughter, Light, in May 2024, social media erupted. Accusations, memes, and speculation flew. Critics labeled Green immature, misguided, and even a gold digger, flipping the usual gender narrative. Some claimed Michele was taking advantage of a rising athlete caught in the glitter of fame. Others said Green was willingly courting drama, trading focus for chaos. The reaction was harsh and swift. Sports blogs, gossip columns, and even former players chimed in. One columnist wrote, "Jalen's not building a legacy, he's building a circus." The implication was clear. His off-court decisions were beginning to undermine the image he'd worked so hard to craft. But for all the controversy, Green didn't flinch. There were no public apologies, no press tours to smooth things over. He doubled down, and behind the scenes, those close to the couple described a bond that, despite its age gap, appeared genuine. Whether that was enough to weather the backlash, only time would tell. What was certain was this: Jaylen Green's story was no longer just about basketball. He had stepped into a realm where fame, relationships, and public opinion collided, and the spotlight was only getting hotter. Just as the public began to digest the headline-grabbing romance between Jalen Green and Drea Michele, a new wave of speculation crashed in. And this time, it threatened to unravel the young star's already fragile public image. In early 2024, whispers started surfacing on social media, fueled by cryptic posts and suggestive photos from Maya Ayacapo, a California college student with a modest online following but a very specific claim. According to fan sleuths and tabloid outlets, Ayacapo hinted that Green was the father of her newborn child, born in February of that year. The timing? Uncomfortably close to the May birth of Green's daughter with Michele. No confirmation was ever issued. No paternity suit hit the courts. But the silence spoke volumes. The tabloids ran wild with the idea. Jaylen Green, just 22, had become a father twice over in 3 months, with 2 different women. For a professional athlete still trying to carve out his legacy, the optics were brutal. Online forums labeled him reckless. Commentators accused him of living out the very stereotype many young athletes work hard to avoid. Memes flooded X and Instagram. Some fans turned cold, calling him a walking TMZ headline rather than the Rockets' future leader. Even former pros weighed in, warning that personal chaos often derails promising careers. And yet, through the noise, Green remained silent, neither confirming nor denying his connection to Ayacapo or the child. Maya, for her part, kept a low profile, focusing on motherhood and sidestepping the media frenzy. Whether out of respect, legal caution, or personal choice, the alleged second chapter of Green's fatherhood story remained cloaked in ambiguity. But in the court of public opinion, the damage was done. What started as a bold love story had morphed into a tangled web of controversy. And as Green continued to battle inconsistency on the court, many questioned whether the weight of his personal choices would ultimately drag down his professional promise. Not long ago, Jaylen Green was heralded as the face of the NBA's future, a high-flying scorer with crossover appeal, youth, and charisma. But in the harsh court of public opinion, stardom is fragile. As the 2024-25 NBA season unfolded, the once unanimous praise began to fracture. And Green, once seen as untouchable, found himself at the center of growing discontent. Despite averaging an impressive 21.5 points per game, Green's performance was scrutinized not for its highs, but for its erratic lows. Fans and analysts alike questioned his consistency. On social media, Houston Rockets faithful voiced frustration over his perceived selfishness on the floor. Empty stats, volume score, and all-flash, no team play became common refrains. It didn't help that, despite his vocal belief he belonged among the NBA's elite, Green was passed over for the 2025 All-Star team. When asked about the snub during a February interview with Toby, Green doubled down. "I think I should be there," he said. But the comments sparked backlash. Critics pointed to his personal drama, the whirlwind romances, the rumored second child, and his increasingly flashy off-court persona, as signs of a young player losing focus. The narrative began to shift. Where fans once saw a rising star with swag, they now saw arrogance. The tattoos, the high-end fashion, the luxury cars, all of it started to look less like confidence and more like distraction. Even those who admired his game began asking whether Jaylen Green was maturing fast enough to carry the mantle of franchise leader. It was a jarring transformation. In the span of months, Green went from idol to question mark, the kind of player whose every step was second-guessed, whose every decision was dissected. For a young man still finding his footing, it was an unforgiving spotlight. But amid the criticism, one thing remained true: Jaylen Green hadn't disappeared. He hadn't folded. And in the face of growing scrutiny, he was about to reveal a side of himself that critics rarely consider. Not the scorer, not the celebrity, but the man. In the middle of media storms, missed All-Star nods, and Twitter takedowns, Jaylen Green did something most didn't expect. He started showing up in places without cameras, and for people who had nothing to offer him in return. Beneath the drama, something else was quietly unfolding. A redemption arc built not on PR spins, but on personal responsibility. Green became a father twice over in less than 3 months. His daughter, Light, was born to Drea Michele in May 2024. Another child, reportedly with college student Maya Ayacapo, arrived in February. While the internet frothed over timelines and parenting choices, Green began leaning into a role far more demanding than any playoff run: fatherhood. There were no grand Instagram announcements or press-friendly photo ops. Instead, he inked Dre's name onto his skin, a silent gesture, raw and personal. And while little is known about his involvement with Ayacapo, sources say he's financially supportive and respectful of her desire to stay out of the spotlight. But fatherhood didn't make Green disappear. It changed his focus. In 2023, he partnered with Houston Space City Kids to host free basketball camps for underprivileged youth, not just funding them, but attending, running drills, cracking jokes, and sitting cross-legged on gym floors to listen to dreams that looked a lot like his own at age 10. And back in Fresno, he didn't forget his roots. In 2022, he took part in a local youth empowerment initiative aimed at helping low-income students access scholarships and school supplies. "I want kids to know they can make it like I did," Green told the Fresno Bee. That's not just a catchphrase. For families in Central California, that's a lifeline. He's still just 23, still learning, still juggling 2 children, a demanding NBA schedule, and the relentless public gaze. But in these moments, the quiet ones away from the roar of arenas and the noise of controversy, Jaylen Green is writing a different kind of story. One where resilience matters more than reputation, and where growth doesn't always make headlines, but always leaves a mark. As the 2024-25 NBA season surged into its second half, one truth became increasingly clear in Houston. Jaylen Green is no longer just the Rockets' rising star. He's their engine, their identity, and their emotional compass. And after years of flashes and frustration, he's stepping into the leadership role many doubted he was ready for. Statistically, Green is peaking at just the right time. As of late March 2025, he's averaging 21.5 points per game, with a career-high 43% from three-point range, according to Sports Illustrated. But beyond the numbers, it's his command of the game that's turning heads. Once criticized for tunnel vision and erratic decision-making, Green is now playing smarter, dishing assists, rotating on defense, and directing teammates with the confidence of a veteran. Under head coach Ime Udoka, Green has flourished. The team system now leans on his speed and unpredictability, but also challenges him to read the floor, defend aggressively, and lead vocally. In a January showdown against the Memphis Grizzlies, Green dropped 42 points on 72.2% shooting, a performance that drew comparisons to franchise legend Hakeem Olajuwon. It wasn't just dominance, it was surgical precision. The Rockets, once mired in the Western Conference basement, now sit firmly in fourth place with a 34-21 record. And make no mistake, Jaylen Green is the pulse of that resurgence. Yet, Green isn't resting on his laurels. "I think I should be an all-star, but there's still time ahead," he told Toby in February. It wasn't arrogance. It was ambition, the same fuel that drove him from cracked courts in Fresno to NBA superstardom. He knows his rookie deal is winding down. He knows the league's elite tier remains just out of reach. But now, for the first time, Green isn't chasing the spotlight. He's commanding it. And as he juggles the roles of teammate, father, and face of the franchise, one thing is certain: Jaylen Green has turned the page. The question is no longer can he rise, it's how high will he go? In the space of just a few years, Jaylen Green has lived a life that feels too wild for a screenplay. From public courts in Fresno to million-dollar mansions, from dazzling highlight reels to divisive headlines, and from the promise of youth to the complexities of fatherhood. Yet through every scandal, setback, and breakout performance, one thing has remained unchanged: his refusal to fold. Green's story isn't clean-cut. It's messy, raw, and sometimes chaotic, but that's what makes it real. He's not just a product of talent. He's the result of pressure, public scrutiny, and a relentless desire to rise above the noise. For every critic questioning his choices, there's a kid in Central California watching him and thinking, if he can do it, maybe I can too. On the court, he's morphing into a true leader. Numbers rising, efficiency improving, presence growing. Off the court, he's learning in real time what it means to be a father, a partner, and a man in the spotlight. And in both arenas, he's proving that greatness doesn't come from being perfect, it comes from persistence. Jaylen Green isn't finished, far from it. His ceiling is still rising, and whether the world cheers him on or casts judgment, he's not backing down. Not from the game, not from fatherhood, not from the responsibilities that come with being the face of a franchise. Because some stars are made for the spotlight, but Jaylen Green, he was forged in fire.